Hey everyone, welcome back to the Creatively Thinking podcast. Join Carolyn Botello as she uncovers the inspirations behind some incredibly creative minds that are orbiting our local communities. Hello, Gord Moss. How are you doing? It has been a while since we've last spoken. You are a multidisciplinary artist specializing in graphic design and music. So let's take a deep dive on how you combine these two distinct fields over your career and where it has taken you.
Hi, Carolyn. It's great to be here today, and I thank you for having me on your podcast.
So yeah, Gordon, I like to start my interviews with understanding where every artist started from. And with this, I mean, what led you down this path? Was it the love of design, working with your hands, or simply the passion you feel when working on design projects for clients? Where is it in your creative process that really drives you?
I guess I first started in the West End of Toronto, the Jane and St. Clair area. My father was a set decorator for CBC TV, which was a really great learning experience for me creatively. I think it first started when I was very young. My father was a set decorator at CBC television in Toronto, and he was a very creative person. I used to basically get a lot of creative materials brought home with him. Being creative down at work, he would sometimes bring us work home with him, and I would watch him play around with signs and pastels and watercolors. And he was an artist himself, and loved to pursue watercolors and acrylics. So I think that's where I first started learning about art and how much fun it was and the creativity process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is fun, right? Especially when you're a kid.
Oh, it was just an amazing upbringing. I was really fortunate to have somebody that creative. And not only was he creative, but he really spurred me on and gave me all these different ideas and provided me with all the art supplies I needed just to do whatever I wanted. And back then, there were no rules, so it was a lot of fun. And I got into photography back then through him, and I had my own little dark room when I was like 9 years old. So it was fun blowing up black and white prints and showing them to my friends and taking photographs and even doing 8mm
props and stuff.
Movies. I remember doing a small horror movie. It was like a 5-minute movie on a Brownie projector camera or a Brownie camera.
Yeah.
And it was all staged, and we had all these little props.
Make it a business, right?
And it was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of creativity in our household. Between me and my other two brothers, we were kept well entertained.
Wow. That does sound really nice. You must have been like the real popular kid in town then.
I was actually, yeah. My father, one time, he brought home a bunch of, he worked on a show called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde at CBC with Jack Palance. And he brought home a lot of very creepy things that you'd see in a horror movie. So we converted our garage. We converted our garage into a little maze, and we had all these different, it was like a spooky house type thing. And we converted it into we charged all the kids a nickel to get in. And yeah, I think I made 35 cents that day, but it was fun. We'd lead them around inside the garage, and they'd see all these make up skeletons, and it was like a little house of horrors. So that was a lot of fun too. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it does sound like a lot of fun.
I did.
So I learned in your credentials that you started with George Brown College with graphic design. Did you see this as a crucial part of your creative journey? How did you find that it has truly benefited your practice as a designer?
Oh, it was great being with a lot of other people that had the same ideas and the same love of design and passion for art was amazing, because all of a sudden you're out of high school. Everybody in high school went different ways. But when you got to college and you signed up for, it was called a graphic design technician program back then. You signed up for that program, and everybody in your class had the same design sense and the same drive, I guess you could call it, for designing all the for learning design. So it was great, and I met a lot of people, and to this day, I still have a number of people that I keep in contact with. That I mean, I'm 62 now, so I'm not getting any younger, but I still keep in contact with a lot of my college friends. So that's kind of good.
Yeah.
We also learned a lot of things that in college that were basically everything without a computer. So we learned from the basics, from the start, without any computers at all.
It's part of your just understanding of things, and you see it, right?
Things like burning of type and letting. You don't see that nowadays with the use of computers. You see a lot of the big, large spaces in between the lines of the letters and stuff. And it kind of drives me crazy because I've learned how to do it the proper way at the start. But I think times change and design changes also. So maybe that's not as important as it used to be. But it's still, when you learn it in school, it kind of, you kind of get it embedded in you. And you recognize it wherever you go, looking at signs outside.
Were there any initial breaks that you came across when you first started in graphic design, or did you find it was more a do-it-yourself, find your own work type of mentality?
That's right.
Where you had to think on your feet, where you had to be sort of pragmatic about searching out projects?
I was really fortunate back then. Georgetown had a great placement agency program internally within their school. The moment we finished, we got our diploma, they had a bunch of people come in to interview us for jobs and look at our portfolios. Back then, they weren't online portfolios. They were the big binders where you'd open up and they'd show them all your work that was pretty well done in felt pen and on paper, and you'd flip through the pages for them. And I met a hiring agent for Sears National Advertising Program by the name of John, and he hired me on about 3 days after I finished. College, so that was a bit of a break. And I started working at Sears 2 weeks after on the 8th floor on 222 Jarvis Street, their national advertising program. We worked in the newspaper ads were on one side, all the national newspaper programs from Vancouver to Newfoundland. We did all that, and the catalog was done on the other side of the building. So I was basically a typesetting artist, where you'd actually take type from Photoshop, not real Photoshop, but an actual photo print shop that would deliver the type in the galleys, and I would put them on a board with a waxing machine, and then they'd actually take a picture of the ad once I assembled it, and it would go off to the various regions for printing. So back in the day, we didn't have the luxury of computers, but it was a very interesting way to start out. It was all hands-on.
How did you find graphic design as a field when you first started out? Was it competitive, or did you find there were organizations and institutions for?
Well, I think the people that I worked with at Sears after I got out of college were much like a team that you'd see anywhere in a well-respected company today. We all basically worked together as a team, and I met a lot of good friends and a lot of good, very talented independent artists that would actually come in. We'd give them samples of clothes to draw that Sears was selling, and they'd go out and they'd actually hand draw a lot of the models in these clothes and hand color. These people would work for hours and hours doing line art for fashion and line art for various different hard lines categories, hardware, and whatnot. So we got to know a lot of different artists out in the field that were freelance and became quite good friends with a lot of them. So it was more or less a team. I never really noticed any
Hmm.
competition with the area that I was in, but I'm sure there was more competition higher
Outside.
up with the people that looked after us. With I guess there was that old saying where Eaton's doesn't tell Simpsons everything, and I guess they're both gone now. But
Yeah. Well, no, Eden's is still around, isn't
well,
it?
Eaton's is still around, yeah. Well, Eaton Center and all that, but
Yeah.
Simpsons is long gone.
Oh, I still see the sign of for Simpsons
Oh,
in,
do you?
yeah, in the, well, it's in the subway.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like this little tiny plaque kind of thing
Really? Eh? Oh, okay.
between the
It's probably a
between the
monument or
stations.
something for Simpsons. Some
Yeah.
sort of little monument. Is it like a brass plaque?
I think it might be. It was like a dark
Wow.
metal, I think.
Right.
Yeah, and it's really small. It was only, I don't know, like three,
Right.
4 or 5 inches wide, and then only probably
Wow.
4 or 5 inches tall. But yeah, it's between the stations. Like I think,
Is it? Oh, wow. That's
yeah,
really
it's
interesting.
really it's hard. I don't think everybody sees it. Like it's really small, and it's
And that's something.
you would yeah. I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly where it is. But maybe I should take a picture of it and see if it's still there, right? But
Yeah, I remember Simpsons. They used to have the best Christmas windows. We used to go down as little kids and peer into the windows, and they used to have all these automated uh, trains and
mhm.
children and people throwing snowballs, and it was just magical to us back then. I think it
Mhm.
was probably 5 or 6, but I still remember it to this day. And the windows are still there, but I think there's not much in them
Yeah.
nowadays.
Well, the Bay does a lot of that the window stuff too now.
Yeah, now they do. Yeah.
So you are an avid musician as well. How has this influenced your creativity as a designer, or vice versa? Has being musically inclined inspired you in your design projects, or has your design work informed your musical interest?
I think it went hand in hand. Music's an art form, design's an art form, creative art. Uh, Everything around there is basically a way to express yourself. And my art abilities actually is kind of funny because I met this singer songwriter that I'm touring with across
Hmm.
southern Ontario right now. I met her actually at a job. I was a graphic designer. I was a layout artist for a company called Lansing Buildall back in the day. They've long since gone. The company was basically purchased by Rona Home and Garden. And anyways, I met this person. She was actually a copywriter, and we worked producing these flyers once weekly for Lansing Buildall. And shortly after, about 2 years, I think she left the business to raise a family. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we were on Facebook, and we both noticed that we were both on, so we became in touch again after all those years. It was about 20 years since we become in touch. And she had raised 4 kids, and my son is now 22, so I was had a little bit more free time than when he was a child. And, so we got together. We realized we got together for coffee first of all to sort of say hi again, and we realized that we were musicians. She was a singer songwriter, just starting out back then, about 6 years ago, and she plays out of she lives in Hamilton.
Hmm.
Her name's Laura Keating.
Hmm.
And we realized that I played percussion and drums, and she played guitar. So we got together a few times just to have fun to see, how it would go. And it worked out quite well. There was a big learning curve. She's an amazing songwriter.
Hmm.
She's probably written, well
Hmm.
over 100 songs, I would imagine. And she's all original
Hmm.
songs. She's produced one CD, and since then we've been touring. Now, to tie that in with graphic arts, I basically do the the art and the visual presentations for her. I designed her complete CD with this CD had a booklet, so it was an 8-page booklet. So I designed this CD to coincide with the music, had all the words in that the music she'd written in it, and I designed that, and now I'm producing all the advertisement for where we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of fun because I get to work on the visual side and the graphic design side, and it's a little less pressure than it's more fun to me because I've got more creative freedom than the structure of Sears advertising or something like that. So it worked out quite well because I get to still exercise my creative graphic design and still get to play music with her. So it worked out really, really well.
Yeah, it's like the skill set you have for graphic design, and then you use it with your music at the same time.
And one thing we both noted is just because it's the two of us playing music together, it's a lot easier to organize places to play. You don't have to go through a complete band. It's just the two of us. So she phones me up, "Are you available on this date?" And I say yes, and then she sends me over the information, and then within a day or so, there's an ad produced for her and for myself, and we put it on all the major platforms, Facebook and Instagram, and that's the way we advertise. And then she sends out a mailing to all her friends, and that's how we promote ourselves. So it's worked out well. We haven't really used an agency at all. It's just self-promotion.
Yeah, that's good when you don't have like a big band where you have to coordinate everybody's schedule when it's just the two of you and you kind of got a lot of free time. It makes it a lot easier, right?
Yeah, it works out well. Actually, we're playing in St. Jacobs this Friday coming up at a place called Block 3 Brewery.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yeah. So anybody out there listening, join us in St. Jacobs this Friday.
More advertising, right?
More advertising there. I snuck it in.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. So that what you just were saying is kind of like the next question, which was, have you seen any examples where your love of music and design have overlapped any projects you have worked on, which you just mentioned?
Right. Exactly.
And if so, how did you incorporate the two, as they are very distinct, very distant, they seem very distant creatively, but as you just explained, that they can be sort of combined, no problem.
Right. Yep. That's basically what I answered.
Over the years, I've seen you at some artist collectives. How has being a designer inspired you to submit your work as a visual artist? Do you see a distinction, or has your experience opened doors you didn't expect?
I really, really wanted, once I got out of college, I was busy through work for many years. And as work became less and less as a freelance artist, I realized I had a little bit more time. And I really wanted, it was on my bucket list to do a gallery show. And the opportunity came up. I did a gallery show, and it was very, very successful. Not only it was successful for me and just good for my it was good to know that I could do that. It was a lot of work, but it was a challenge, and it was a great challenge. I had a lot of people helping me out, and that was my first exhibit, and I really enjoyed it, and I want to in the future. I've got a few ideas lined up, so hopefully I'll have another one within the next couple of years, and we'll see how that goes. But there's a lot of things rolling around in my head right now that I want to do creatively, that now I have, being sort of semi-retired, I have the time to do them.
Yeah, that's always nice. Yeah, that gets me thinking, well, what inspires you? But then I guess that's a whole other podcast, right? And we'll be right back.
Well, I get inspired by lots of different things. I think my love of photography, walking down the street, even looking at street art, graffiti inspires me a lot. Taking photographs of graffiti and just turning them visually into something different. I've been, pretty well extensive in Photoshop, and I've even gone back to a program. I don't know if you remember this one, but it was called CorelDRAW. But no, this was called CorelDRAW, and it
Corel,
was
yeah.
a company based, I think, out of Ottawa. One particular.
So that's that one I remember more. But then now it's trans. Oh, I thought you were going to say Quarks Express. I feel like don't.
Oh yeah,
don't say that one. I hated that one.
I did that one too. Yeah. Well,
I just have a hatred towards Quarks Express.
Oh, Quark Express, yeah. Well, we worked on Quark Express a lot in advertising at some of the local hardware stores that I worked for. So that was a big thing. But I moved on in design and somebody once said, I won't say who, think different. So I was looking for a different platform, and I've just basically through the pandemic time, I pretty well learned everything that CorelDRAW has to offer, and I'm kind of fluent in that. It's bigger in India, Asia, Europe. CorelDRAW, they use it a lot for package design.
Oh, okay.
I took it on. I thought, it'd be fun just to try it. I had it a long time ago. I had the program in my computer in younger days, CorelDRAW, and I always liked the program, so I went back to it. I finally went back to it and learned it all, and now I'm using that pretty well for photography and for designing too. So as long as it comes out as a PDF to the client, people really don't worry about how it got there, but they worry about a nice PDF that they can use. So it doesn't matter what platform you're on nowadays, as long as it's a PDF, it goes anywhere.
Yeah, it can be translated into anything.
Right.
Hey, people don't care, but that does sound like a better program than doing the Adobe suite, because that's getting expensive to just
very expensive.
Have it every month. And I'm like, every month I'm like, should I have this? I don't know if I'm using it enough.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got to really make money off it to make it productive. Otherwise, you feel like you're digging yourself deeper into a hole with like, why am I using this if I can't make money from it? So with Quark anyways, they charge you a yearly fee, and it's 1 year. You can decide after the whole year whether or not you want to use it again, and I always end up using it, and my company is been very successful, and I'm not really worried about renewing it now. So it's
so how have you seen the graphic design field changing over the years? Yeah. Has it stayed consistent and predictable, or have you seen it evolve in new ways? Has it surprised you in how it has changed, or has it been expected how its trajectory has moved into the present?
It's surprised me dramatically, like just incredible, the changes that I've seen over the years. Back when I first started, computers were very, very, actually, when I started college, we didn't have computers back then. That's how old I am. But it's really changed. I think it's the immediacy of the way people design now, and the speed and the way things are transmitted. There's no more courier trucks taking boards of artwork off to a printer to have them printed in a newspaper. Everything's so immediate. Designing is so immediate.
Instant, yeah.
It's almost, I've noticed a big difference, I know, with probably creativity. Things seem very linear now, as opposed to having more of a natural, humanistic approach. Back then, it was more humanistic with actual line drawings that people would actually draw on a board.
They'd storyboard it, right?
They would. There was so much more creativity from even like a fine art standpoint, because the fine art sort of blended in with the graphic design back then, with artists that I think there was one artist called Ernie Chalco and he was a fine artist, but fine artists would not make a lot of money back then. They would have to resort to other ways that they could demonstrate their skills, and being used in catalogs and newspaper ads for Sears and for other companies. Lansing back then also used a lot of line art. They would hire these fine artists on, and the fine artists would be very grateful because they'd have basically a steady income every week doing new art of the products that the company sold. So it was a great thing for them. Every once in a while, we'd be invited to one of the shows that one of these artists would be providing art for us. And it was a real education to see how skilled these people were in fine art. And I think I started to get into sort of the gallery approach. And I went around to a lot of galleries downtown when I worked at Sears, and observed a lot of the fine artists, both older and the new up and coming artists. So OCAD was amazing. I remember going to a few shows there. Very, very amazing shows that I still remember to this day, and that was probably 35 years ago. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. So have you seen your creative career change over the years? Have you seen it as a necessity for survival or as part of your evolution as a creative professional? How were those changes to your creative practice? Do you still see them continuing to happen in the future?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the evolution of the computer from day one when I got my first Macintosh computer. It was beige in color, and it just stood with a black and white screen, and it crashed every 15 minutes. Some of the programs were made for that early Macintosh computer had an automatic save on the program itself. So it would save it every 5 minutes. So if you forgot to save it, it would save it, and then you'd have to reboot your computer. But it was a slow process. But just the evolution of computers, I've seen the vast difference in the way things are first of all designed and idiocy, as I said before, and the way people collaborate too. There's a lot of back and forth without even talking to the clients. Like I have a lot of clients that use me, and sometimes I don't even talk to them at all. From me starting out with a rough idea, sending it off to them, getting feedback, to actually producing the final copy, to sending it out to print, and the printer sends it out to them, and basically you don't even see anything. And even the checks that you get back are all electronic too. So it's without the computer, you can't be in business. That's for sure.
So what about the, like you were mentioning collaboration, and you've seen the evolution. Has collaboration increased or decreased over the?
Well, it's definitely increased.
Oh, that is good. I thought it would have been the opposite, now that everybody's just in front of their own computers and on their own, so they're just doing everything by themselves. So you don't, like you said, it's you're not even contacting the client really. So
well, I think I tend to collaborate probably more with the client as opposed to other artists. So the client has a lot more input because they can see what you're doing pretty well on a daily basis with the projects that they've given you. And I think because of that, they have a little bit more input. It's not like drawing something on a board and it's harder to change once it's done. Now it's a lot easier to change. You can erase it just like that.
Yeah, you can just erase it. Yeah, on the computer screen. Yeah.
Or copy and paste it and then start over with a new background, or start over with different colors for type, and even change the color.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's something we couldn't do back then.
Yeah.
So that evolved. I think that really helped the industry a lot. because it provided the client with a lot more ease to change things that they thought would work better for them. And the client was always right.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And there's like a sense of transparency between the client and
That's right.
the
Yeah. So I think that that's one of the biggest evolutions is the collaboration
yeah.
between people, and a lot of the programs out there now, they can actually, you can go on a workflow system where you can actually send it over to somebody else who's working on a different page of a magazine or a different page of
Mm-hmm.
a catalog, and you can actually see what everybody's doing pretty well virtually at the same time. So it's an amazing tool.
Yeah, that is really good.
Yeah. Well, I was really fortunate to have a brother who was a television director. He was educated at Ryerson in Toronto. Back then, it was called Ryerson Polytechnic Institute, I believe. Now it's university. Um, but my brother Wayne, went through radio and television arts through Ryerson. From there, he worked his way up in CBC to TV director. Um, Started off on the floor, pulling cables for cameramen, and worked his way up to a well-known director in Toronto. Became independent, and through a few leads that he had, he got a job working for Jim Henson, who came from New York City, set up Fraggle Rock in Yorkville, in Toronto, at a place called VTR Studios. And Wayne got to do the studio directing for Jim Henson, which was a real break for him. Such a professional place to work in. He phoned me up one day and he said, I got something for you. He says, I don't know if you're interested, but it's going to be really creative. It's building all these. They had these little green men on this Fraggle Rock show. They were called Doozers. I don't know if you've seen the show.
Yes, I have. I do remember the show, and I used to love it. Yeah, I
Oh,
can't
cool.
remember it now, but
Right,
I do remember
right.
really liking it. Yeah, it's a really good show. Oh wow.
Yeah, that's great. So he said, we need somebody to build all these doozer constructions. And basically, what these doozer constructions were, these little plastic extrusions that they would build square boxes out of, and they'd make constructions out of them.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it was
yeah.
kind of an ecosystem uh, at Fraggle Rock where the Fraggles would eat the doozer constructions like candy canes. So it would keep the doozers busy making all these constructions, and they were like construction workers. They all had green hard hats on, and would build all these constructions. So I was actually the person that built all these different constructions. Kept me busy for a good year. So I worked
Hmm.
at VTR Studios in Toronto. They had no room for me, so I worked out in the hallway, which was kind of great because I got to meet so many people going by that I kind of idolized when I was growing up. I mean, these people worked on the Muppet Show, and we had special guests come in to actually see the show done. One time we had Sally Ride. She was the first uh, female astronaut in space, I believe. Uh, she came down to see the show, so I met her.
Hmm.
They Jim Henson and NASA
Hmm.
had a big friendship. The astronauts loved the segment on the Muppet Show called Pigs in Space. I don't remember that, but they did this little segment, and all the NASA astronauts
Hmm.
loved that segment. So they became friends with Jim Henson, and he had them over. So when they were in training for the space shuttle for the robotic arm, which was designed and built in Toronto, they would come in and train on this robotic arm or the actual space shuttle. They would come over, and they got to see Jim again because he was in Toronto doing Fraggle Rock. So I met all these different people that were historic. Well, basically, Jim Henson was an icon back then, and still is today.
Hmm.
His name's
he still
still
is.
predominant.
Yep.
I remember shaking his hand, and it was like, wow, this is Kermit the Frog, right?
Yeah.
That was his hand, right? But
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
was sad. He died too soon. It was a real shock to all of us. But anyways, I built these doozer constructions, and
Mm.
I finally progressed into some electronic Muppets. They were, well, Fraggles.
Hmm.
They actually called them Gaggles. They were electronic ones were called Gaggles, and they worked off radio controlled electronics.
Hmm.
So a person offset could actually control the mouth and the neck of the puppet itself from
Yeah.
offset in a mitt. He'd put his hand in this mitt, and the Muppet on set or the gaggle on set would mimic
Hmm.
his actual hand, um, the way his hand moved. So it was like somebody was operating the gaggle on set, uh, but you could them in different areas now that you could never do that. There didn't have to be a hand coming out of the electronic puppet itself. We had
Hmm.
them off like on the ceiling. We had stalactites and stalagmites, and we had them hanging off these big giant stalactites, and there was no hand on them, but they could actually move. You could see them
Hmm.
move and sing songs up in the air without
Hmm.
any hand control. So it was really innovative back then.
Yeah, it does sound like it would have been, because to be so separate, but yet still control it from another area, that yeah,
Oh, it's just amazing.
really advanced. Yeah, wow.
That's right. It was advanced for the time. Yeah. Now it's a lot more CGI, so you don't get a lot of that now. But back in the day, that was cutting edge because CGI wasn't even around back then. Computers were just coming in, but they weren't as advanced as they are
Mhm.
now to create something like that.
With music and design being as connected as they are, can you distinguish them individually when you are creative, or do they blur and become one when you are consumed with your creative practice?
That's a good question. I I think I pretty well I think they pretty well blend together, especially when I'm doing ads for promotion of music of our shows and whatnot. I kind of think about where we're going to play, and it's interesting to see how I sort of kind of tailor make the ad to the venue that we're going to play.
Hmm.
Um, the golf courses or whatnot
Hmm.
tend to use a lot more greens and a lot more colors for that. So I kind of tend to take away from where we're
Hmm.
playing the music, the venue itself, and try to incorporate it into the ad to give it more of
Hmm.
a flavor of where we're going to play. So I think it kind of blurs in back and forth. With music towards
Hmm.
art, I've always loved
Yeah.
um, back in the day, I've always loved music videos, the ones on MTV. I still watch them today. They're very
Hmm.
creative. They were in their infancy back then, great creatively. They weren't all done in 4K, that's for sure. But like people like David Bowie, David Byrne from the Talking Heads had some
Hmm.
amazing videos that he incorporated with his music. And I grew up in the MTV age where you'd actually where everybody was being introduced to these videos,
Hmm.
and you could actually see the artist, which
Yeah,
worked
you'd have
out,
the experience
which
of
was
the
great
artist
because
as
back
well
then
as.
you just put out an album and you just
Hmm.
listen to them. But with incorporation of MTV, you could actually
Hmm.
visually see what they were thinking and also visually creatively their artistic form and the presence that
Hmm.
they had was just something that opened all our eyes. You could
Hmm.
now see these people singing and
Check it out.
doing what they were doing. But yeah, David Byrne was a big influence on me. Still is today. He's a highly creative guy. He was the lead singer for the Talking Heads, and he's if you ever get a chance to get on YouTube, um, type in Talking Heads or David Byrne, and you get some pretty creative visuals, creative videos. It's very interesting. Mm.
And we'll be right back. How have you found logistically being a designer and an artist can function creatively together? And by this, I mean graphic designers are very organized and motivated and great at sort of coordinating and planning. But to me, this is kind of like the exact opposite of, a traditional artist. So how have you found a way to make that these two very different stereotypes function together?
I think sometimes I try to coordinate a little bit of both. I think I've been fortunate enough to be brought up from a sort of a fine art. I'm not a fine artist per se. I'm more of a, I think I enjoy a lot more photography, but I look at art and I look at graffiti and I like to take photographs of it and use it as sort of a backdrop for something. And um, now you can do that. You can take pictures and totally manipulate them around, and so you don't even know that it's the same photograph. And I find that's been a real inspiration to me. And I find, like, even from the fine art standpoint, with graphic design, you tend to use your computer all the time. And I find, like, fine art has come to the computer also, where I've got a drawing tablet that I use on the side. It's a really large tablet that actually shows you the screen of the computer on the tablet, and you can use various programs to create fine art. And a lot of these programs now are emulating a lot of different ways of
Mm-hmm.
different mediums, like acrylic and oil-based paints.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of programs out there. They're not meant, I don't think, to compete or to emulate real oil paintings, but I think the technology is there. It's almost like
Yeah.
a CGI for fine artists pretty well, where you can actually try to produce something that looks like an oil painting that really isn't, but all of a sudden you're given all these different tools on your computer to play around with different types of fine art. And the benefit for that, actually, for me, is that you can erase every mistake that you've made. It's a little easier than a start over or a watercolor. So, I mean, it's a good tool to learn too, because the mistakes that you make, you don't have to live with. Although some of the mistakes out there for fine artists are probably one of their best attributes to
Yeah.
some of their artwork,
Yeah.
because art is what it happens when you put it down on a piece of paper too, right?
Mm-hmm. They call them happy accidents, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, but I find I've incorporated a lot of different fine art
Mm-hmm.
things in my computer that I've just used. It's a lot cleaner too, but it'll never be, it'll never be the same as actually taking a brush
Yeah.
to a pad.
Yeah.
But
And start over. Yeah.
for me right now, it's giving me a little bit of a stepping
Yeah.
stone between design and fine art and photography.
Mm-hmm.
So I have them all on the same basic platform,
Mm-hmm.
and you can basically take a photograph and you can trace it and draw it on this tablet that I have.
Yeah.
It's like a giant iPad, and you can draw
Yeah.
out the outlines and sketches and stuff, and then you can be creative once you get all your composition correct, and sort of visually have an idea of where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You can elaborate with it right on screen. So I find that's a lot of fun too. So I think that's how they sort of all marry up together.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of sort of blend together because they're all on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is a very
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing, just from the creative process. And they are very easy to change too. Colors are easy to change. But I mean, that's not taken away from the true classic fine art, which is an art in itself. I just find that probably only on this planet for a number of years left. I'd like to explore technology as much as I can because I've seen it from the infant stage and I've seen it develop. And to be actually a part of graphic design, to be a graphic designer, I've had to keep my education up every year. I love learning about new technologies, and I find that it keeps me alive, keeps me going, keeps my mind sharp, and just learning about new technologies that are developing every day pretty well now keep me going too. I'm very interested in technology and the way it relates to photography and graphic arts and fine art.
Hmm. Yeah, it's weird how like they are all different, but they've all got a lot of similarities and a lot of overlap, right?
There is a lot of overlap, but I don't think it'll ever
Hmm.
compete with a traditional painting.
Yeah.
But you never know. There's a lot of amazing things that are happening, and the future takes a lot of turns from a technological side, that's for sure.
Hmm.
And I've never to this day could I have imagined what I have in front of me right now. I've got two giant monitors here and an illustrating pad, and I've got an iPod, and I've got all the tools I need.
Got all the toys.
All the toys, yeah,
Yeah.
everything, and music-wise too. I've got a complete
Yeah.
music studio in my basement where I can record digitally, and it's a great process. A lot of fun.
When you mentioned about OCAD, is when you were talking about how in college at George Brown, yeah, I think it was the George Brown question, and you were saying how being surrounded by all the other students and then just how it made you feel more creative and you just, with like-minded people kind of thing. I kind of just wanted to pipe in there, which I didn't, but I just wanted to say now that I remember when I was at OCAD, it was like the exact opposite. It was the way they made it seem. I had this feeling that it was just, we're all competing for the same jobs. So don't really talk to people because you're competing for the same jobs and just, do your own work. And so like I never really got that connection with all the other students because I kept thinking, oh,
Wow, that's
we're all
interesting.
competing. I shouldn't really talk to people.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm. I think it was probably just how I was seeing
Wow,
it
that's
because
interesting.
or maybe it was like that. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but yeah, it seemed very competitive.
Well, yeah. Well, that's interesting that it was that competitive.
We're all competing for the same job and that, okay, well, just, just get the work done. And I think I was also stressing myself out too, just with trying to get all the work done. And I was trying to do illustration.
For graphic design, there was probably more of a market back then for a lot more graphic designers and fine artists, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I know that the college that I went to was very demanding work-wise, and I'd end up staying up, till 4 o'clock in the morning doing
Hmm.
projects that were due the next day. Not because I was lazy. I loved doing all these projects, and I loved getting immersed into all these different projects that they had us do. Creatively, it was so much fun that I, wake up early and go to school early every day just to be a part of it all. Because I was in the course that I was supposed to be in.
Hmm.
High school, I was in art once every 2 days, I think, and after that, it was various other courses that didn't really appeal to me that much. Never did understand history, but
Hmm.
and I don't really remember a lot of that subject. But I was more into the arts back then. But when you're immersed with people that are like-minded as you in the arts, it was a lot of fun. We were all learning and just sort of almost it was just like a fun time of my life that I'll always remember. And there were a lot of different places for graphic artists to go after that. I don't know about the placement for fine artists. I'm not too familiar with how you got placed in a job or like you landed positions in various companies.
as an artist, well, at least when I was going to OCAD, there was really no business that they taught you. It was just like, here, this is how you paint,
Right.
and this is how you do Photoshop,
Right.
and this is how you do typography.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, here's quote, air quotes, professional practices, which was just like they tell you to write a bunch of papers, and which I think of as like your master's degree, but
Right. Yeah.
but then it was like, okay, then you're done, you graduate, and then it's like you figure it out. And
Wow.
yeah, it was like so I just went to galleries, and then they kind of laugh at you, like
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have the experience and you don't have all the shows under your
Right.
belt yet. So it's just,
Right.
yeah, I hope that they changed it since I was there.
Did OCAD, did they have dedicated teachers that would work 9 to 5 at OCAD?
Yeah, there were some like that. Yeah, there were also designers and illustrators part-time.
Okay. Because I know with George Brown College, they had a lot of teachers that would teach part-time, and then they'd be illustrators in the afternoon. So be they would teach you a lot of the
Oh,
hands-on
wow.
work
Yeah.
skills that they were demonstrating at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was a bunch that were like that. But then there were some that you could tell were pretty much retired and they were just trying to make some extra money on the side kind of thing.
Right. And then they do their job in the afternoon or whatnot, but they do teaching in the morning sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We had one teacher actually, he did all the background graphics for the national news, and for Hockey Night in Canada, he would do all the graphics for them. And a nice guy. He'd come in and he'd teach us some of the tricks on how, because when they do news stories for the national
Yeah.
back then, they weren't computer generated also. They'd have to do them on storyboards basically,
Mm-hmm.
and do them quite fast for the news at 11 o'clock back then when it hit, right? And so he used to teach us a lot of different tricks of the trade and ways of doing techniques that would speed up the process. And it was basically art. You put it down on a board and they take a camera still of it, and then they put it behind the newscaster. But at nighttime he would do the national news, and then in the daytime he would teach us. So it was kind of neat. We kind of got sort of a current approach. It wasn't something that was in a textbook. It was something that was happening now. It was really great because you felt like you were on the cutting edge, right? And now I guess today it's all computers. But I hope they still to this day teach the fundamentals, even though they're probably not as glamorous as a computer.
Yeah. I think there must be some of the original sort of grassroots kind of just
There has to be, yeah, a foundation.
Yeah, the foundation. That's exactly it. They must have some of that at least for one or two classes. So,
right.
But yeah. Well, thank you so much, Gord, for participating in this with
thank
me.
you.
And yeah, we've done about.
We're pretty well covered it off.
I think we've done pretty good. So we got the full hour for sure.
Oh, I'm glad we got together to talk.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really good. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, thank you again for participating.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking me. That was a lot of fun. Great. I look forward to the final.
Yeah, it was. And
Perfect.
yeah, so thanks again,
Okay.
Gord, and
okay. And have a good evening. Maybe we'll get together for a coffee sometime.
Yes, exactly. I said we should get together for a catch-up coffee soon.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch anyways.
Yes, for sure.
For sure.
All right. Okay, take care, Gord. Okay.
Hey, good.
You too.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Join me next time as I go down another rabbit hole with another creative professional on their insights, their inspirations, and their ingenuity.